The JRPG industry is no stranger to porting, remastering, or remaking their old games. Companies nowadays seem to have gone completely crazy with those. But you'd be surprised to know that they have done this many times in the past with some very interesting releases on different consoles. So today we'll take a look at 10 JRPG ports, remakes, or remasters you probably didn't know existed. So let's begin. Number 10. Star Ocean: The Last Hope. A lot of people don't know that Star Ocean 4 got a remaster on the PlayStation 4 and on Steam all the way back in 2017. No, it wasn't just a pretty looking port like some PS2 games, such as Star Ocean 3 merely released digitally on PS4. No, Square Enix treated this as a full-fledged remaster and advertised it as such. You probably didn't know it existed because the company didn't make a lot of noise about it, but most importantly because it didn't get a physical release, sadly. The remaster is based on the PS3 international release, but now it runs at a stable 60 frames per second with a 1080p resolution. Allegedly, it can scale all the way up to 4K, but I seriously doubt it can do that unless you're playing it on a PS5 Pro and on an actual 4K TV or something. And even then, I don't think you'll get a true 4K experience with this remaster. But anyway, finer physics processing, more detailed character models, enhanced backgrounds, objects, trees and rocks or even enemies are now visible at a longer distance. In other words, they did take their sweet time into remastering everything visually with this game and improving the exploration and controls a little. Obviously, it's not one of the best remasters ever made, but it's a good version of it to play. I just wish it could have gotten a physical release at some point, cause then you would have known about it and this game wouldn't have to be in this list. On a side note, I think this is a great game and a criminally underrated action RPG. Number 9. Romancing SaGa. After the first trilogy of SaGa games known as the Final Fantasy Legend in North America, Square developed Romancing SaGa with a different perspective in JRPG mechanics. It had a non-linear gameplay, players could choose one of 8 different characters and embark on an open-world journey. It was a commercial success in Japan, but the world wouldn't know anything about it until Square Enix remade it entirely for the PlayStation 2. Well, it wasn't as successful as the original and people eventually forgot about it. Therefore, it became a hidden gem that only a handful of people knew or even remembered. Its sequels didn't get remakes but instead high-quality remasters that ended up on nearly every modern system. This led to people wondering if the first one will eventually get the same treatment. This was now a decently known and established sub-series outside of Japan. However, instead of remastering the original game, Square Enix decided to remaster the remake on the PS2, now for PS4, PS5, Switch, phones, and Windows. Probably won't be as popular as it is in Japan, but at least people won't see it anymore as a hidden gem. Number 8. The Alliance Alive. I've covered this game multiple times in the past as I'm a big fan of it. Its original release on the 3DS didn't get enough attention, probably because Atlus didn't do the best job in advertising it. All they had was a AA RPG developed by Chronicle with the creator of Suikoden behind the script. Well, for some reason people loved it despite its commercial obscurity. NIS America caught wind of this and somehow got the rights from Atlus and Furyu, the publisher in Japan, to remaster the game. A version was then released a few years later on PS4, Switch, Windows, and eventually for phones. I don't think people know how incredible this was and aren't aware of something really important. Sure, other companies had done it before, but the fact remains that porting a game that was originally designed for a dual screen system to just one and completely remastered is definitely no easy feat. Well, thanks to this, The Alliance Alive became a fairly known title. It's gained a lot of reputation and recognition throughout the past few years. Number 7. Half-Minute Hero. This forgotten action RPG is a game most people know for its original PSP release, though for some reason I feel its Steam remake is more popular. You control an unlucky guy who's practically coerced by a money-loving goddess to get rid of the evil lords in every single part of the world. Battles are played in real time with zero control from the player. Thing is, you only have 30 seconds to level up and traverse the overworld. Thankfully, you can restore those same 30 seconds by paying money to the goddess. This is a really fun game, but did you know it had a remake for the Xbox 360 Live? That's right, digital only, but it's there, and yes sir, it's a full reimagining of the game. Well, it was subtitled as Super Mega Neo Climax because it has a mode to play with modernized graphics. Some of the mini-games or mini-episodes included here have improved. 6 new quests are there after beating the game, there's also DLCs, achievements, and an online multiplayer feature. I say you can't go wrong with any version of this game, but if you're curious, go ahead and try the 360 version. Number 6. Monster Rancher 1 and 2 DX. This pair was originally released on the PS1 to a commercial success back then. Everyone knows those versions. Well, a few years ago they were remastered in Japan, and then we got the DX ports of that on December of 2021. These can be considered as Pokemon clones since they strongly revolve around monster training, but they're also vastly different in terms of gameplay. You don't just capture monsters, instead you summon them by using CDs. That's right, CDs! In the original games, you could use actual CDs as long as they were compatible, including CDs from other video games. In these remasters, you select the CDs from a database that can be customized. There's a lot of depth to this, so I recommend watching a review to understand it better. You'll be training monsters through several short minigames so they can increase the stats and fight in the tournament. Battles are played in real time with no control from the player. All you can do is give them orders or change their attack range. So you see, they're very different from Pokemon, at least in terms of gameplay. No PS4 version so far of this remaster, only on Switch, PC, and even mobile, and no physical release whatsoever yet. The Final Fantasy Adventure. Yeah, that very early action RPG released on the Game Boy that has nothing to do with Final Fantasy. Its real name is Adventures of Mana. Yep, the first Mana game ever created. They localized it with that other name because Final Fantasy was a brand and was the only famous RPG franchise outside Japan back then. Well, that and Dragon Quest, of course. However, in Europe it was called Mystic Quest. Huh. No, not that Mystic Quest. Anyway, if you think the unexpected console it was released on is the collection of Mana on PS4 and Switch, think twice. It got 2 remakes before that. That's right, remakes, not ports. It will surprise you to know that Sword of Mana on the Game Boy Advance is actually the first remake it got. Here you play as either a guy or a girl in a version with an expanded story. Visuals are more reminiscent of Secret of Mana on the SNES, while controls allow you to move freely around. The own chosen hero or heroine will be your only ally controlled by the computer. This is a great version to play of this game. And there's yet another remake of it most of you probably didn't know about. One that was digital only for the criminally underrated PS Vita. Well, it was first released for mobile phones worldwide. With full 3D visuals completely redone, still top-down view, again with the Secret of Mana type of combat, you're the male hero no matter what, but you're accompanied by the heroine, but she and other characters have different skills you can use in battle. This is a pretty cool second remake, but it has its ups and downs. Out of the 3 versions, I can't really pick which one is the best, but at least I can say you can't go wrong with any of them. Shining Force. This influential strategy RPG came out initially on the Sega Genesis, and that's the version everyone knows. Of course, we can add all of its inclusions and iterations in Sega's constant compilations on other systems. It's been there on almost every single one of them, from the PS2 to the PSP to modern systems. And each version looks slightly upgraded in terms of visuals, by the way. But there's one little remake, that's right, remake, it got back in 2004 that people keep overlooking nowadays. It's called Resurrection of the Black Dragon for the Game Boy Advance. Same game, rebalanced difficulty, updated graphics, a rework on the sprites and portraits, except it has an expanded story, 3 new playable characters, one of them being able to use cards in battle. This card feature was also expanded throughout the story. You know, as much as I love the original version, I gotta go with this one. It is an excellent release that plays gracefully on the GBA. I know nowadays it's easier to play the Genesis versions in most of the collections out there, but I hope you can give this remake a try one day. Coloon High School Chronicle. This is a remaster of a PS2 game that never came out of Japan. The remaster got a physical release on the Switch in Europe and Japan, digital only for North America. It's also going to be released on the PS4 soon, but only in Japan! For now. Coloon is an extremely unique dungeon crawler with strong visual novel elements. The story is very interesting about a transfer student in the middle of several paranormal events happening at this high school. There's a lot of reading here, but there's also a lot of decision making. Obviously, your reactions and choices affect your relationships with all characters you meet. Some of them will join you on several investigations during night at the cemetery, where the explorations will take place. It's done in large areas full of many different puzzles. Battles are played in turns, but you can use a variety of projectiles and weapons, although you have to aim at the enemies to attack them. You can have your allies do something to aid you in battle as well. It's hard to describe because it's so original and difficult to compare to any other game I've ever seen. Definitely give this one a try if you're curious. Lunar, the Silver Star. Lunar is a game that's seen a bunch of ports and remakes since its inception on the SaGa CD. You're probably most familiar with the PS1 version, the first remake, which would also be released on the Sega Saturn and PC, but only in Japan! We got the PS1 version, and 13 years later, its version for phones, if you actually care about those. You may also be familiar with its PSP remake from back in 2009 called Silver Star Harmony. That is my favorite version to play of the game for its enhanced 3D graphics, its rebalanced gameplay, and its brand new prologue with other characters, an episode that's pretty much exclusive to this release. But the really unexpected release of this little gem that most people don't know about is its Game Boy Advance version. And when I say version, I mean it because it looks, plays, and sounds like a GBA original game, kinda like Sword of Mana. Even though some content was cut out or more like changed, known pretty much as a retelling of the story. Several gameplay differences are here though, like a shrunk overworld based mostly on menus and no random encounters. Characters do not move around during battle anymore, all of them now having special powers like the limit breaks in Final Fantasy. Overall, this is a pretty decent version to play if you can't get your hands on the others. Not the best one, but definitely not a bad remake. Number 1. Xenosaga I and II. Nope, this is not a joke. If you thought Xenosaga I and II were PS2 exclusives, that's because you've never heard of the Nintendo DS version. And I honestly have no clue what's it doing there or why they decided to release it here. It seems to me that the Nintendo DS was home, very unexpectedly, to a lot of PlayStation JRPGs, similar to the 3DS with games like Dragon Quest VII, 8 and Tales of the Abyss. Unfortunately, this DS version of Xenosaga stayed in Japan. There's been some fan translation projects, but they've all been abandoned halfway through. I usually don't cover only in Japan games in these types of videos, but this one just fit the criteria so perfectly, and from what I've heard, it's a very good game. It pretty much gets rid of several cinematics and tons of inconsequential dialogue the original PS2 games had, so I played it and met this really unique turn-based battle system that reminded me of Enchanted Arms. Up to 3 characters are positioned in these grids and can be moved around to create different formations. They also have death blow attacks, something that wasn't in the original games. Man, I wish we could have gotten this strange Nintendo DS release, so I really hope it gets fully fan translated one day. I have a huge honorable mention, big deal, a remake of Tales of Destiny. That's right, the PS1 version that we did get got a full remake on the PS2 that we didn't get, but it's been fan translated for a few years. but I did a full review of this game about a month ago. So obviously the people who watched that video already know about this remake, but in case you didn't watch it, click here to watch it right now.